Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
And I think this is the book, right?
Boom! There we go. So climate.
In case you weren't going to get it in, I was going to get it in.
So let me describe. So it's basically a product shot of your book. Looks great. So climate change kitchen in large white letter is over a plate of what looks like a fig salad.
It's a seared tuna salad.
Seared tuna. Okay, very nice. Meat and plant-based, reduced calorie, simple cooking, fight global warming with good food. Matthew. So good. Okay, so we've already talked a little bit about the book. I'm going to let you... So you chose this image, this graphic of your book, clearly to have it sort of be the focus of our conversation. How do you want to start this part of the conversation?
Well, I mean, we've covered it, right? It's kind of the closing shot, because really what I wanted to cover was, my journey from writing the last book to trying to do veganism, to failing at that and saying, can I do something else for those who don't have the willpower to go fully vegan, to taking this engineering solution and say, let's make stuff that people like but make it better, and then trying to learn the skills in photography and cooking. And I mean, I've always been an interested I've always been a passionate home cook, but I'm not a professionally trained chef, which is why I think that comes across in the recipes is that they are easy recipes. They don't take too long to cook, and actually I put in there a lot of. So one of the important points as well that we make in our sort of 8 tips on low carbon cooking is don't mess it up and don't waste it.
Right.
In each recipe, I know all the areas where you're going to go wrong in cooking, particularly the dish, whether it be putting in too much of a strong ingredient, like people, home cooks tend to just chuck a load of garlic. You're like, I like garlic. Let's put a whole bowl of garlic in, or let's squeeze a load of lemon juice in, or let's put in loads of this really strong flavor. Be careful with that. Chili. Obviously, putting too much chilies and things. Always put a little bit in. You can add it later. Taste it. It's important. You cook at home. You don't taste it, do you? If you watch the chef programs on telly, they're constantly tasting the food.
Constantly tasting, yes.
That's a real skill, right? Because when we cook at home, we just blindly follow a recipe and assume it's going to taste good. No, this is a process. Like it's not science. It is a bit science, but it's also an art. And the art is tasting and figuring out as you are cooking the dish how to make it taste good.
I really love that. So there's something, really, I mean, I'm going to sound kind of poncy by saying this. I'm only a little poncy. Okay, so there's something really delightful, really sweet, really endearing about the fact that you dork out, you geek out, you apply your scientific knowledge to sort of deconstruct the problem of getting to net zero. Really amazing and inspiring. And then you're like, okay, you know what? Okay, that's one approach. Now I'm going to approach it from a different perspective. And in fact, I'm going to fess up. I'm going to be like, I tried being vegan and I couldn't do it really. And it was too hard. And I'm sorry if you hear the dogs, a bunch of dogs all around me barking. But actually, you're putting yourself out there. And it does take courage to put yourself out there. And especially with a cookbook or any book. So much respect, because I know that there's the effort of putting together a book, but it's also the effort of going into something that's not really your comfort zone.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not my comfort zone. I like to cook at home, but it's a pressure creating a recipe and then getting other people to cook it, right? You feel like if something goes wrong, it's your fault. You haven't written the recipe properly, which is So I was always very conscious of that, writing each recipe. I think a lot of cookbooks are too very short on description, and they don't think about what's going to go wrong because they're professional chefs probably, and they've spent 5 years at some sort of Michelin star, food school, learning all of these basics, and it's so ingrained in them they don't think about it. Because I still have, I have to think about it. I know what's going to go wrong. So it's a disadvantage, but it's also an advantage in that respect. And yeah, there is something about putting it out there. But I wasn't even in my comfort zone writing the first book, right? It's like being back at school again and having your homework marked by people when you put it out. That's the feeling.
Yeah. So you put it out in the world, and then in a way, you open yourself up to some kind of criticism. So listen, I want to say something, because there's something about being vegan that really touches something in people's.
It triggers people. It's so divisive.
It really does.
Divisive. If I could pick two things that's incredibly divisive, climate change and veganism. That's
yeah, and because I'm, but here's the thing, like. The reason why I love Thailand so much, and that the Thai Buddhist sort of approach, which is just do your best, just don't be an asshole, just do your best. Because some things that really get on my nerves is somebody, for example, who's really into companion animals, like protecting companion animals, and really like dogs and cats, and really, isn't it so important to really extend your sense of compassion for these poor innocent dogs and cats. And so, like I know many vegans who have like 4 dogs, and it's like, well, what about their carbon footprint? You know what I mean? Like life is messy. And so I'm just like, just do your best.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's important to show people, not tell people. Maybe that's a good way of putting it, right?
Right.
People don't want to be told what to eat. They want what they eat to be regulated by governments, and they don't want taxes put on beef so that everything that they want becomes more expensive. But if you can show them there's a better way, or a different way, let's not say better, but we say different way, which is lower impact and just as great, and maybe an option they haven't thought of. I think it's that kind of softer approach, which I think is going to work better for that, that kind of cultural change that is required in food systems and agriculture.
Right. So as a somebody looking at getting to net zero and the carbon footprint of food, have you looked at things like meat substitutes, like Impossible burgers, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're a great idea. There's lots of there's like Memphis Meats, Impossible Meats. Yeah, there's companies basically taking plants and using modern processing methods to turn them into a meat equivalent. Some of them go a little further and add things like heme, which is the substance that you find in blood. They derive it from plants or fungus. And that gives it that kind of irony meat taste, you know what I mean? That you get out of a steak. So that's kind of, that's the forefront of what's kind of commercially available on that.
Right.
Then in the future, there are technologies looking at sort of cellular cultures of meat. So you would take cells of animals, but instead of growing them in the animal, you grow them in a vat with a nutrient fluid. You can structure them around kind of a seaweed membrane if you wanted to make a steak, so you can grow out different bits of fat or protein or muscle fiber or whatever it is. And this can be done now. It can't be done at a reasonable price. That price will come down.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be I think it will eventually work. You will see some companies doing it, but I think it's always going to be the premium end. It's going to be expensive. At the moment, it's buying the culture, which is the most expensive part of it, because they're buying these cultures, which are typically used by the pharmaceutical industries to grow drugs. So they're super high quality, basically. So there's an opportunity to bring the costs down in that. So like a cheaper culture for food growth, like meat-based food growth. But I think we also need cultural change. And I think that's a
Yeah.
bigger driver. And, if you look around the world, the big meat eating countries, Europe, US, Australia, Latin America, they roughly need to halve meat consumption,
Mm-hmm.
which will allow number one, a lot of the developing countries around the world need to up their protein consumption somewhat. And remember,
Mm-hmm.
you can get obviously protein from plants, the great source of protein, things like soy and things like that. But if the big meat eaters could halve their meat consumption, which is way too high already, it's
Yeah.
at an unhealthy level, then you can have a little uplift in developing countries, but you can reclaim some of that agricultural land, and that helps us on that journey towards net zero agriculture.
100%. And look, I can't avoid it. I'm trying to avoid it, but I can't avoid using the pun of the low hanging fruit is to actually use your book to just cook a sort of just use new habits of cooking with a lower climate footprint recipe. I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
had
super
no
easy.
idea.
And you'll cook these recipes. I have a couple of pages at the start with a couple of those charts that I've given you, but I didn't want this to be a big. It wasn't meant to be like my last book. It's not 400 pages on exactly how to do it.
Hmm.
It's 2 pages on what are our 8 rules. Why have we done this?
Right.
And what are the 8 rules? 2 or 3 pages, and it's just
Wait, wait, wait,
recipes.
wait.
But each
What are
recipe
the 8 rules?
you learn the tips. The 8 rules. So these rules you were talking about for low carbon cooking. So let's go through them.
You buried the lead. You buried the lead. Start with the 8 rules.
We did the 8 rules.
Okay, good. Go for
Number
it.
1, 800 is the magic number. So
Nice.
800 grams of CO2, 800 calories for a main meal. Why? That's a recommended calorie intake. And number 2, that's more than 50% lower carbon emissions than your average meal today. So that's the boundary that I set for myself on every meal serving.
800.
Eat your greens, green your eats. So we always want to be switching some meat for more plant-based stuff. That's always going to work. If you can do it, do it, because that's always a surefire way of lowering the carbon footprint and making it healthier. That's not to say we're not going to use meat, and we do use meat, but I think there are certain dishes which are better vegetarian. And if that's the case, they will be vegetarian. Choice meats, meat choices. This is what we've been speaking about. No beef and lamb. And I'm not saying never eat a steak. Just have a steak, enjoy it once a month but don't cook beef mince every day. Use pork mince, turkey mince, chicken mince, whatever it may be instead. So yeah, choosing sort of chicken and pork over lamb and beef. Plenty of fish in the sea. So that's what we're talking about, choose mollusks, not crustaceans. Choose fish like herring, mackerel, skipjack, tuna that are sustainably sourced. Be more careful around sort of whitefish and salmon because they can be okay, but they can also be bad. Spray, don't drizzle your oil. Yeah. So use less oil. Because using 4 sprays instead of a tablespoon is 75% lower carbon emissions and calories. And then dairy, it's one we haven't touched on maybe, but the cow is no longer kin. So look at dairy alternatives. I love oat milk. I can't drink cow's milk in my coffee anymore. It tastes weird.
Yep.
So I tend to use oat milk for my like hot drinks, cereal now, but also if you're making a bechamel sauce, use oat milk. It's actually way better. It's creamier. Or soy milk if that's your choice. Same for yogurts. And then cheeses. I don't like vegan cheese. I think there's a way to go.
Some
on
are good.
Cheese.
Some are good.
Really, I haven't come across a good one yet. But it's things like if you're going to use a lot of cheese, go for a soft cheese because it uses 4 times less milk to make. Or if you want to use like Parmesan, I use Parmesan in loads of the dishes, but you're putting a very small amount because it packs such a big flavor. So those are the types of things you want to be thinking about. Use it, don't lose it. All the recipes, I tried to think of a smarter way of doing this, but actually I couldn't come up with it. But all of the recipes tend to use standardized ingredient pack sizes. Do you know when you cook, and you're often left with half a pack of this vegetable and a
Right.
half open like bit of sauce that's going to go off in 2 days.
Sure.
And it all gets thrown out. So I tried to base everything on standardized pack sizes that you would get from your supermarket or whatever.
Right.
So don't waste. Try avoid waste, obviously.
Yep.
And then smash it, don't trash it. So this is what I'm talking about, like chili. Go easy on the chili. You can always add more later. Lemon, garlic, these strong flavors. Actually, great little tip I learned was if you heat garlic in a dry frying pan, like a garlic clove, for like 5 minutes, so it heats it through. It kills the enzyme that gives you that really strong garlic aftertaste. If you're using raw garlic in like dressings and salads and stuff, that was an amazing cooking tip that I'd never known
That's
before.
great.
So you can put the garlic in there, you get the flavor when you're eating it, but you don't go away thinking, I can still taste that weird garlic dish in my mouth.
Right.
And those are the 8 rules. Is that 8? I don't know. I said 8. 3.
Matthew,
4, 5, 6,
wicked.
7, 8. Yes.
You crushed it like garlic. I love it. Well done.
Like garlic.
Dude, thank you so much. This has been so good.
Cool.
Thank you. We're done.
Hopefully you've learned a couple of things.
I have. Yes.
I've told you. I've showed you. We've showed you the charts and the photographs.
Yep.
We haven't told you. We've discussed
You have crushed it.
And
so thank you so much, man. I will catch you the next time with your next book, which will be completely different.
Quantum consciousness.
Nice.
And the nature of reality. This one's got a 10-year lead time, though. I've got to relearn quantum mechanics again. I've forgotten it all.
Okay, Matthew. Well, listen, on that note, have a really great day. Thank you so much. This has been great.
You're welcome. Cheers.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.